Hello, my name's Nigel Thorne, and I'm concerned about the influence of an ideology on the policies of the Welsh Government. The gender-critical argument that you may be familiar with or have seen referenced in the media is the belief that biological sex is immutable. Gender is socially constructed, and neither men nor women should feel constrained by socially imposed gender expectations. Being gender critical means being critical of gender. If you've ever argued the gender critical case on social media, it is likely that you've been told to shut the fuck up, that you're a bigot or a TERF or equivalent to a racist. The fact that it is made impossible to discuss an issue that until a few years ago wasn't controversial makes it clear that those who argue against this viewpoint subscribe to an ideological belief that is impervious to rational challenge. Now, if we didn't live in a time of ideological conflict, I would be happy to adapt my language to help put others at ease. I would be polite. I would be kind. I would refer to a man as she if he presented as a woman. I would refer to a woman as he if she presented as a man. Part and parcel of living in a society is to make allowances for others' belief systems that may not correspond to our own. But we do not live in such a time. We live in a time where people are insisting that a man who identifies as a woman is literally a woman who identifies as a man is literally a man, and that our laws and organisational policies should reflect that. This is a problem. It's not true. A person does not become something simply because they identify as something. It can only be true if we redefine the words woman and man so that they correspond to socially imposed gender stereotypes rather than biological sex. And very many people have done just that. So imagine there is such a thing as womanness, a set of stereotypes of how a woman should be, and such a thing as manness, a set of stereotypes of how a man should be. Now, if a male individual doesn't feel comfortable with manness and more comfortable with womanness, then he may identify as trans. His gender identity can be said to be mismatched with his biological sex. Similarly, a female who doesn't feel comfortable with womanness and more comfortable with manness may also identify as trans. Her gender identity can be said to be mismatched with her biological sex. Male and female individuals who feel comfortable with their manness and womanness, respectively, can be described as cis, and those who don't identify with either set of stereotypes can be described as non-binary. This is the ideology that is being pushed. And what is extraordinary is that politicians from all political parties, presumably in a misguided attempt to appear inclusive, have pledged fealty to this ideology by spouting the mantra, trans women are women, trans men are men, non-binary identities are valid.
What do you think of J.K. Rowling's position on trans women?
I don't agree with it.
Why?
Because I think trans women are women and trans men are men.
That trans rights are human rights, that trans women are women.
But let me say, in proposing them from this dispatch box, that trans men are men, trans women are women. And
so my starting point is the same as Penny Mordaunt, the UK minister responsible at the time, who said that the UK government's starting point was that transgender women are women. And that's my starting point in this debate.
My question is, are all trans women women? You haven't answered that question.
Well, that's not the point that we're dealing with
That's
yet.
the question I'm asking.
Trans women are women, but in the prison context, there is no automatic right for a trans woman.
So there are contexts where a trans woman is not a woman?
No, there is circumstances in which a trans woman will be housed in the male prison estate.
Is there any context in which a woman born as a woman will be housed in the male estate?
Look, we're talking here about trans women.
And I'm now asking about women born as women.
I don't think there are circumstances there, but...
So it's different for trans women?
Well, yes, and I'm not...
So they're not equal?
Question, simple question to all candidates. What is a woman?
The first person to come on this question is Nick.
This happens a lot, like in politics generally. we try to simplify things down to just the definition of something. Yesterday, lots of people were talking about, what socialism is and what it means to different people. It's kind of the same here. I don't think we're going to get to any good solution on this issue if we're trying to define a word.
Okay, thank you for that. Tom, your views on this one?
Thank you. I kind of agree with what Nick has just said.
Thank you very much. Amelia, what's your view on this question?
Thank you. I agree as well that I don't think we can talk about this in binary choices. It's more complex than that. As a proud feminist, my feminism has always been intersectional.
Thank you very much. And finally, Cleo.
Well, I think I'd like to say that for me, the Green Party does represent equality, and that's something that comes across very well. But to answer the question very, very briefly, after having rambled a little, being a woman is an attitude.
In contrast, those who push the gender-critical arguments on social media are targets of considerable hatred. Partly this is because those who push the gender-critical cause argue for the maintenance of single-sex spaces, but much more fundamentally for those who rationalise their decision to transition by subscribing to this ideology. The very idea that gender stereotypes are socially constructed, are not fixed and can be challenged, undermines the premise at the very core of their belief. It is an existential threat. People who have rationalised their experience in this way can feel that they are being erased. And some people will do what it takes to shut down gender-critical views, even if their own views compromise the clinical care for children struggling with gender dysphoria. In March 2023, a Cabinet paper, publication of the LGBTQ+ Action Plan for Wales, was published. In the summary section of the paper, it reads, "Officials have worked collaboratively with a wide range of representatives from LGBTQ+ communities, as well as the LGBTQ+ expert panel, to inform the development of the LGBTQ+ Action Plan. Leon Sapir, a fellow of the Manhattan Institute, recognises two components of gender identity ideology: queer theory, a praxis-driven philosophy pushed by Professor E.J. Reynolds, a member of the LGBTQ+ expert panel, whose influence can be seen in the new definitions of the words sex and gender in the glossary of the plan. And gender identity essentialism, a belief that gender identity is innate and overrides biological sex, a position promoted by lobby group GIRES, whose chair of trustees, Kat Burton, is also a member of the expert panel. For those who subscribe to this belief, stating that biological sex is immutable and important is a transphobic dog whistle.
And the member and people like her spent the whole of April trying to raise these dog whistle concerns.
I would like to see more cases, more examples being made of politicians who are making those kind of statements for completely political, electoral reasons, just to whip up hate, basically. Just dog whistles, as Jeremy Miles said earlier today.
In March 2021, Kat Burton gave evidence to the Women and Equalities Committee in Parliament.
Non-timely intervention for trans young people can be a lifelong tragedy. And I just wanted to say that, yes, the vast majority just need socialisation and support and talk. But at TANA Stage 2, there is a very limited window of opportunity to prevent long-term damage from inappropriate puberty.
Kat Burton is one of several late transitioning trans-identified males who have had an influence, directly or indirectly, in the creation of the Welsh Government LGBTQ+ Action Plan. Another is Jennifer Pritzker. To support a chair in transgender studies at the University of Victoria in Canada, Pritzker made a donation of $1 million. In a video message hosted on the university website, Pritzker claimed that gender identity is an important part of everyone's life.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Pritzker. I support the chair in transgender studies and the transgender archives at the University of Victoria, Canada, because transgenderism is a complex subject. Gender identity is a part of everyone's daily life, and for transgender individuals, even more so.
On November the 8th, 2018, Pritzker released a statement in response to reported efforts of the Trump administration to define the word sex. In the statement, Pritzker wrote, "Defining sex as a biological, immutable condition determined at birth by genitalia disregards the internal, emotional experience of gender identity. It also denies acknowledgement of the transgendered community and strips us of our civil rights." In 2019, an article titled "Bias, Not Evidence, Dominates WPATH Transgender Standard of Care" was published on the Canadian Gender Report website. The author wrote, "When looking at the WPATH committee who worked on the current SOC document, a cursory examination of the members reveals that every one of the members have significant conflict of interests. All of them either receive income based on recommendations in the guidelines, work at clinics or universities who receive funds from advocacy groups, foundations or pharmaceutical companies who heavily favour a certain treatment paradigm, or have received grants and published papers or research in transgender care. The majority of the members are from the United States, and 6 of them have affiliations with the same university, the University of Minnesota Program in Sexuality, which is primarily funded by a transgender advocacy organisation, Tawani Foundation. Eli Coleman, the committee chair for the WPATH Standards of Care, who Institute of Medicine guidelines stipulate should be completely free of conflict of interest, has his very position at the University of Minnesota funded by Jennifer Pritzker, a trans person and head of Tawani. In fact, there are press releases of Eli Coleman in 2017 thanking Jennifer Pritzker profusely for a generous donation which adds up to $6.5 million that Tawani has given to the university. Tawani also funded WPATH, the Standard of Care Development. Another advocacy group, Gender Identity Research and Education Society, GIAS, funded the translation of the Standards of Care into various languages. The author further writes that the WPATH Standards of Care do not qualify for a trust score from ECRI, a non-profit organisation who gauge the confidence that people should have in the evidence of the efficacy of potential treatment provided by medical organisations. In February 2023, an article titled "Gender Dysphoria is Rising and So is Professional Disagreement" by Jennifer Block was published in the British Medical Journal. In the article, the author wrote, "Professor Mark Helfand at Oregon Health and Science University identified several deficiencies in WPATH's recommendations, such as lack of a grading system to indicate the quality of the evidence, while Professor Gordon Guyett at McMaster University found serious problems with the Endocrine Society guidelines, including pairing strong recommendations with weak evidence. Helfand explains that calling a recommendation evidence-based should mean a treatment has not just been systematically studied, but that there was also a finding of high-quality evidence supporting its use. Despite these concerns, WPATH recommends that youth have access to treatments following comprehensive assessment, stating that the emerging evidence base indicates a general improvement in the lives of transgender adolescents. Eli Coleman, lead author of WPATH Standards of Care and former director of the Institute for Sexual and Gender Health at the University of Minnesota, told the British Medical Journal that WPATH's new guidelines emphasise careful assessment prior to any of these interventions by clinicians who have appropriate training and competency to assure that minors have the emotional and cognitive maturity to understand the risks and benefits. But without an objective diagnostic test, others remain concerned, pointing to examples of teenagers being fast-tracked to medical intervention with little or no mental health involvement. In the LGBTQ+ action plan, there is a quotation from the WPATH Standards of Care version 8. Attaining cultural humility with a full appreciation of the intersectionality of humanity is an ultimate educational goal. There is also a reference to the document. The standards of care have been criticised, not least because of the decision of WPATH to remove all age requirements for medical treatment, with the exception of phalloplasty. They have also been criticised for the decision to add the category of eunuch as a gender identity, and to reference a website, the Eunuch Archives, a fetishistic site that includes sadistic stories about the castration of young boys. Reporter Genevieve Gluck investigated.
They have a very rigorous process for vetting people, which I discovered pretty quickly, as they will check ISP addresses and things like this. So I managed to get into the password protected area of the website, which is the Fiction Archive. Now, if you go to the website, it looks like it's from 1995 or something. It's got this very outdated look. There's a reason for that has to do with its history. But anyway, I was able to get into the Fiction Archives, which are mentioned in the WPATH Standards of Care. And they're mentioned in this very passing way. They call it, I think they refer to it as fantasy. The Eunuch Archive is filled with fantasy, which is such an... So the contents that are behind the password protected area are, it's roughly about 10,000 fiction stories that have been collected over a couple of decades, written by forum members. And, among them, nearly half contain the theme of children. So some around 4,000 of them are tagged with minor.
So this is child pornography. This is fictional child pornography. Okay.
Exactly. And
and let me make that clear. This is fictional child pornography about castrating children and about removing their genitals, removing their ability, also chemical castration. Isn't that right?
Yes. Yeah. All of it. There's stories in there about doctors castrating children and then sexually abusing them that are written are in extreme graphic detail. Stories about children being killed, raped, killed, tortured, all of those things. There's snuff involving children too.
The LGBTQ+ Action Plan for Wales is referencing a document that contains a link to a fetishistic website containing thousands of sadistic stories involving the castration of boys. One could be forgiven for questioning whether the WPATH Standards of Care and the LGBTQ+ Action Plan are more concerned with the interests of adults than they are with the interests of children. Jeremy Miles confirms that the Welsh Government are fully committed to implementing the action plan.
Whenever we have cabinet discussions about the LGBTQ+ action plan, everyone is supportive, everyone's on board, everyone's looking for ways of making a difference. And I think that is the real thing.
Those parents who think that expressing concern about the Welsh Government publishing an action plan that references a document that links to a child abuse website is more than just a dog whistle may wish to support Public Child Protection Wales. Links are included below.